Never been much of a sailor, but I remember so well seeing at one time the horizon and then a wall of water which seemed to last forever. And we went in a convoy across the Atlantic, and we had 2 warships, Warspite and some other. They were heavy type destroyer, medium-sized cruisers, and the div formed up and we went across the Atlantic. We zigzagged as much as possible all the way across to miss the U-boats. We were damn lucky really to not be picked up. There was one rather horrible incident. About halfway across we were picked up by American cruisers and destroyers, and they wheeled double circle round and then took us off. And our British cruisers, which were terribly needed and overtaxed really, then sailed back to England. And shortly after picking up the American cruiser, a rating fell off the cruiser in front of us, and I can remember to this day this poor devil going by. We shot all our, you can shoot these sort of horseshoe jacket things out to them. We got several, quite near him, but he was, he had no hope in hell. Went straight under the screws of the ship behind us. It was the most dreadful sort of entry into that type of life. And then we went through thick, heavy fog, fortunately for us, I suppose. And to our astonishment, there we were in Halifax. And Halifax was filled with enormous American shipping. And to digress for a moment, you see at that time Churchill had agreed with Roosevelt, and the American shipping was there for our use. These enormous transatlantic liners, all painted grey, and we had, I suppose, less than 24 hours to transship everything from our boat in Halifax Harbour to an American ship.
Now thank you for that little pause, Fred.
Well, then we transshipped overnight. It was a hell of a scene. The cranes whizzing about, picking stuff out of one ship, dumping it in another. I well remember crates falling out of the netting hoists, plunging into the harbour. But it was all achieved, and we're off first thing in the morning, all our gear, all ready to go. We whizzed down a few miles off the American coastline. We spent one day near Trinidad. A few got off just for a quick visit. We had to keep very, very clear of subs that were operating in the area, but it was decided in the end to make a quick dash across and get down to Cape Town. So we got into Cape Town Harbour, and spent a few days in the Cape, just visiting, you know, the obvious sites.
Now, without you in Cape Town, did you start in your own mind having
Yep.
an idea where you were going?
Yes, we assumed that they must have stalled again. You know, or we could think that back in London, the administrators were stalling on the deposition of the troops, you see. So going into Cape Town, we assume, well, they'll take us up north again, and we'll finish up eventually where we were supposed to finish up. I should have said earlier that we were probably the finest equipped division, the 18th at that time, in the British Army. Everything was there that a division needed. But we weren't long in Cape Town. I believe at the time, you know, telegrams, messages and all sorts of things were flashed backwards and forwards with the press and Australia. And quite amazingly, we went from there, crawled up the coast and then darted across the Indian Ocean. That was probably the most boring part of all. It was nothing but water, water everywhere for days. And then we went into Bombay Harbour. So this dispelled any thought that we were destined for the desert, and we landed in Bombay, left the boats in Bombay Harbour, were taken inland by train to the large army camp at Ahmednagar.
And now, what was this date?
And
What date were you in Bombay?
I've got it somewhere here. So Cape Town was the 9th of December.
Now that's an important date, because that's the day or two after Pearl Harbor.
Exactly. Pearl. I arrived on the 27th of December.
Oh, if you arrived in Bombay on the 27th of September, it was well after the Japanese had already invaded Malaya. So, did you now know you were going to Singapore, or had you started to think about that?
No, I suppose by then we had realised that we were going to do something in the Far East, as opposed to what we were trained for, which was desert warfare.
Yes.
And we once again used our time in Ahmednagar, which is inland from Bombay, of course, in training and manoeuvres. And then quite suddenly we were all told, you know, pack up, back to Bombay. And to the surprise of us all, we went straight back onto the ship that we'd left at Bombay Harbour.
Yeah. I'll just stop it there. Now, I think you mentioned that you'd just returned to the port, and strangely, the vessel you arrived on was still there.
Yep. And we went straight back and departed Bombay on the 19th of January.